West Cork Beard Company make beard oil and beard balm for a strong, healthy, great-looking beard. Handmade from all natural ingredients in Clonakilty, West Cork. Check out their YouTube channel for beard care tips and advice, or catch them online at westcorkbeardcompany.ie.
Good evening, Happy New Year. Welcome to the Save World Arsenal Team Talk. I have some fantastic guests with you this evening. I am your host as ever, Dan Potts, and I've got West Brom fan Ian Murphy with us. Ian, how you doing, buddy?
All right, guys. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. Much appreciated. Also joining me tonight is Mr. Lee Judges. His hat is gone. His head is shaved once again. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. I feel a lot better than I have been over the last week, I must admit. But I'm fighting fit now. I'm fighting fit.
Good, man. It's great to see you back and hear you sounding a lot better, Lee. You haven't been too well, have you, mate? So I'm glad you're... I'm glad you're with us again now, man. And of course, joining us as ever, Mr. KC, Kevin Campbell. Super Kev, how you doing?
I'm good, Dad. I'm good. Hi, Ian. Hi, Lee. Happy New Year to you all and everybody who's watching. Happy New Year and a prosperous one and a healthy one, most importantly.
Man, happy and healthy. That's all we all need. That's all we need for 2021. Good evening to everyone in the chat room. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you all. We're going to go into West Brom first. We're not going to talk about Arsenal. And KC, I'm going to come to you first. I know you've only got half hour with us. Before we go into tomorrow's game, talk to me a bit about your time at West Brom, because, of course, it was some iconic moments for you. What was it like for you playing for West Brom, man?
When I went, obviously, from I was a kid, knowing that Big Cyril, the 3 Degrees had played there, it was kind of it was nice. You meet these guys like Cyril, who's obviously no longer with us, and you see the pictures. Brendan Batson, who played for Arsenal as well as a kid, and you see these guys at the football club, and that is a landmark football club for a brother. You know what I mean, for a black player, because they embrace these players. So I took it upon myself to, when I went there, I was very happy there. I was comfortable there. I made a lot of friends there from obviously the coaching staff who I'd played against majority of my career, and from the backroom staff who were superb, absolutely superb. And I felt at home straight away, to be honest with you. It was just a matter of assessing the situation as a footballer and trying to make a difference, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch, to the mindset. I think the mindset is so important when you're at a club like West Bromwich Albion, who obviously have overtures to stay up.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, 2005 was a big year for you guys. Absolutely iconic moment. I don't think anybody gave any of you guys a chance, to be honest with you. What was he like in that dressing room? It must have been absolutely buzzing, wasn't it?
Well, I'll tell you a story about that, actually. So I'm always one of the first in. So I gets there early. I bought a load of expensive champagne, got to the kit men. We've put it in the ice maker, so nobody could see it. Sunk it right down in the ice, so nobody thinks anything. You wouldn't even know it was in there. Obviously, the Crystal Palace versus Charlton game runs over. Me and Brian Robson end up being left on the pitch and doing interviews. I get in, and there's all the bottles are finished bar about that much in one of the bottles. So I had to slurp that quickly before somebody took it. Of all the 5 bottles, that's all that was left. So the lads had a good time in the dressing room, mate.
Man, and rightly so, man. Rightly so. That was iconic. It was an outstanding achievement, to be honest with you. But Casey, we'll stay with you because this has been a strange season for West Brom. It's a difficult time for them. Obviously, Bilic was involved as their management. He's now been replaced by Sam Allardyce. So going into this game, as far as Arsenal were concerned, we got a little bit of confidence back, which we'll come into in a minute, winning our 2 games. But it's still going to be a difficult game, in my opinion, for the pure fact that we all know what Big Sam's about. So 2 questions, really. What have you made of West Brom, and what do you think will happen tomorrow? Because it's going to be tough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thought Slaven Bilic was hard done by. If I'm being brutally honest with you, when you consider what the club actually invested in the squad, it wasn't a lot. Most of the players who are in there have been the players from last season. They've got a couple of players in, but if you really want to, you know what it's like. If you want to stay in this division, you've got to be able to score goals. And I think sometimes that's been the Achilles heel. Looking at them getting rid of Slaven Bilic, I think that's more of a monetary thing, because the owners want to stay in the Premier League and they're trying to hedge their bets that Big Sam will produce again. So whether Big Sam actually has the correct players there to play the way he wants to is debatable at the moment, because I think the lads are built to be Slaven Bilic players the way they are. And they played a bit of football. They were tough, but they played a bit of football. Not many teams go to Man City and get a draw. And it's quite ironic. They go there and get a draw and he gets sacked that evening or the next day. So, you know, it is one of them. They're going to make life difficult for Arsenal. That's 100% true. But Arsenal got to go into the game thinking they could win the game, because after what happened in the last home game against Leeds, West Brom have to try, so they have to come out and win the game. And that plays into Arsenal's hands if they come out and try and win the game, because, you know, Arsenal on the counter-attack can hurt anyone.
Were you surprised, Casey, that there was a thumping? Listen, Leeds can do that. They're a great side, don't get me wrong. But I was surprised to see that at home with Big Sam's tactics. And maybe you're right there that he hasn't got the players yet to play the way he wants to, because I was really surprised to get a brilliant result at Anfield, to go 1-1 and then get absolutely battered, with no disrespect to him, by Leeds. I was a bit surprised, if I'm honest.
Let me tell you something, Dan. It can happen. In the Premier League, it can happen, because you know what? You go to Liverpool and you scrap and you fight and you get a point, and you come back home and everyone's feeling good about themselves. But this is what the Premier League will do to you. You feel good about yourself. Next minute, before you know it, you're 4-0 down. And you're thinking, what's going on? But, you know, you can't take liberties in the Premier League like you get away with in the Championship. Teams will finish you off if you're not doing the right things on a consistent basis. We've seen it with Arsenal. You don't do things on a consistent basis, you're going to end up getting turned over. And that's what happened. Unfortunately, it happened with West Bromwich Albion. But that might be the worst thing to ever happen to Arsenal, because now they're going to batten down the hatches, aren't they? They're going to make sure whatever happens, we don't get beat. So who knows what's going to happen. But I think Arsenal will be going into it as favourites.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ian, I'm going to come to you on this, because we've talked a lot about Bilic and West Brom and now Big Sam. Sum up your season, man. What's it been like for you?
Been pretty much exactly what I expected it to be like. I think we all got a bit carried away. We did well last season, but they haven't, like Kev touched on, they haven't strengthened in the right areas. That's the big thing. I was one of them. I got carried away when we were kind of ripping teams up in the Championship with Dean Garner, Pereira, lovely football Sawyers, but we were just sort of, it was easy, basically. We were the ones with 60% possession every game, and we went and signed these players, and we all got carried away that we'd signed Pereira, we signed Dean Garner, we signed a striker who, in my opinion, isn't good enough for the Premier League, but we didn't sign sort of what we needed. We needed a defensive midfielder. We've gone into the season with Livermore as a defensive midfielder. He wasn't good enough last time we were in the Premier League at that level. Again, he looked great last season. Bossed it in the Championship. Great player, great experience, probably a great lad. Not good enough in the Premier League. And we just didn't strengthen the defence. Full-backs aren't good enough. We've got ex-Arsenal, Kieran Gibbs, never really fit anymore, but would be good enough. The right back, the other left back. Those were the areas we really had to strengthen if we had a chance of staying up. Because Dean Garner and Pereira, they do different players this season, but of course they do, because we're the team without the ball, and I just don't think you can carry players like that when you're going to be scrapping at the bottom of the league. That's the big problem for us, I think. Where Bilic, I agree with what Kev said. Bilic, he was hard done by, but it's a Championship squad. It doesn't look like a Premier League squad. I can't think of many players who many clubs in the Premier League, any level, would take. It's a Championship squad, and Bilic should have maybe had a go at it. But I think if you really look at it, who's got a better chance of keeping us up? probably Allardyce, but I don't think he will. But I think if anyone's going to, it's him over Bilic. But he needs an overhaul. It's not going to get. Sam Allardyce doesn't want Dean Garner there. Probably doesn't want to play Pereira. He needs another centre half. He needs a defensive midfielder. I think that's our big problem, really. We've got a very badly balanced team.
Well, Ian, the transfer window is open, so let's see what happens. If there's any manager, mate, that's going to keep you up, you've got him in appointed, because he's done it so many times with any teams. He kept Sunderland up, who were terrible in terms of their quality. I don't look at West Brom's team and think it's terrible, but what I look at is I see exactly what you've just said, which is players that are kind of good, if that makes sense, not outstanding. I don't look at West Brom and think, wow, I could take 5 or 6 of those players in the Arsenal lineup. I know it sounds crazy saying that, but I would for some of the other teams. Arsenal were not the team they used to be. And I look at some of West Brom's players and I just think they're okay, like Kieran Gibbs and Jake Livermore, like you've mentioned quite a few. But do you feel, Ian, just on you lastly, do you feel confident now that Sam Allardyce is there? And I know it sounds silly because he's only had a couple of games in charge, but do you have more confidence that Big Sam will keep you up than Bilic? Surely.
Yeah, you've got to. If anyone's going to keep that squad up, it's him over Bilic. I don't think Bilic should have chanced. We can't play our way out of this. We're not Leeds. We just, this is what happens when we try and play football. We lose games. What we did at Anfield is what we can do under Sam, but I feel like he's touched on it in a couple of his press conferences after Leeds. But our problem is when we have to think about attacking, we concede stupid goals. Every goal in the Leeds game, it's because it's easy to go to Anfield and 100% think about defending. And we did what we did, and we limited them to 2 shots on target. We had 3 that game. But then we go to a home game against Leeds where we think, right, we can win this game. We've got to win this game. We try and attack, and that's what happens. So if he can sort that out, which if anyone can, he can. He's the man you just have a bit of faith in. Like you said, he's done it to a lot of worse sides than us, and he talks a good talk. He's already come out and said what I'm thinking after every game and thrown a few players under the bus, and I don't think he's afraid to annoy some of them or drop some of them. And if he can just get that 1 experienced or 2 experienced players in we need in the window, we might have a chance. But I genuinely think it would be more of a miracle than the 05 season we were talking about this year, if I'm being honest. I think we're a lot worse than we were then.
Yeah, listen, I've got to agree with you. Lee Judges, let's come to you. Before I come to you, Craig's got a question. Why isn't Lee wearing a shirt I bought him for Christmas? Bloody cheek. You're Secret Santa. Come on, Lee. Don't let the side down, man. Come on. Don't let the side down.
I've got that all pressed and ready for Monday night. You know what I mean? So that's why that ain't on, So,
Lee, tomorrow night, going to be a tough game. Big Sam, he knows how to play against Arsenal. What are your thoughts on West Brom tomorrow, Lee?
Yeah, listen, I've always had a big thing for West Brom, going back as what Kevin was saying in the 70s when they had the Cyril Regis, Laurie Cunningham, Derek Statham, players like that, Brian Robson. I remember actually they was playing Tottenham one time, went down to White Hart Lane just to watch that West Brom team because it was an iconic team. It was like the proper team to watch. If you remember, they had the great red and white, the white and blue kit, but they also had the yellow and green. Yeah. It replicated it but it was like yellow and green, and they wore it that day, and it was like they was an iconic side with these players and everything like that. So always had a lot of thing for West Brom going from there. Of course, then obviously Kevin playing from as well with that. But over this last couple of years, I've gone off of them. You know what I mean? Like I think they've done the dirty on Darren Moore a couple of seasons ago when I thought that he didn't deserve that to happen to him. And without really backing him, and then Slaven Bilic comes along, gets them back up into the promised land, which is no easy thing to do. It's not easy to do. He done it at the first time of asking, wasn't really backed as Ian said in the summer, and then they get rid of him, and then to top it all, bring in Sam Allardyce. If there is some team you're going to rate as it's them and him. So I've gone slightly off of West Brom a little bit because of that, and I feel like maybe they deserve a little bit of their own medicine. If they'd have backed Slaven Bilic, who knows? And I'm always in this thing is he's done them fantastically well to get up. Why can't he be given the opportunity? I'm so desperate for Sheffield United to survive because they're backing their manager and going that route as someone that's got them from League One to the Premiership, like, and they're going with him. So I feel a little bit like that. And you know, then to top it all, he gets a fantastic result at Man City, and apparently he was sacked on the coach on the way home, which is unbelievable. Like, at least they give him a lift home. There isn't that thing to like, you know. But yeah, so I feel that, you know, if West Brom were to get relegated and all that, and there's no offence to him because he seems like a nice guy, I just feel that, you know, it's deservedly so, you know. But like Kevin tells me of all the great stories of, you know, when he was there and the supporters and that, like, so that I still have that little thing, you know, where I want him to do well. But Sam Allardyce, I honestly think now, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just feel that like these sort of managers now have run their course. I think it's a different way of playing now. When I look back at Sam Allardyce, and listen, he was the wrath of Arsenal for many a year, him and Tony Pulis, mainly because they could kick the living daylights out of us and get in our faces and whatever. Like, nothing wrong with that. That's part of the rules, and they took them to the limits. Nowadays, you can't do that as much. You can't be in the faces so much. The rules don't allow you to go around kicking players so much there. So I feel now that their style of management is not as strong as what it was back in the day. So I feel it'd be a tough game tomorrow, but I do feel that Arsenal, you know, should have enough firepower to be able to get through this game. And I think the one thing that West Brom, I think, will defend and be organised, because Sam Allardyce can do that. They haven't really got that firepower, and that's where I feel that Arsenal at the moment will be okay. Because I think defensively, with all of our flaws this season, defensively we're slightly better than what we was over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I feel quite like you, Lee, in some of the stuff you're saying about West Brom, because I think sometimes that if you do back the manager and stick with it, even if you go back down, the likelihood if you show faith in him, he'll bring you back up, and that's what Burnley did with Sean Dyche. So I thought maybe West Brom would have gone down that route, but obviously not. Ian, before we move on to Arsenal, wanted to share a story with Kev, or your favourite memory, West Brom. I'm going to let you do that.
I haven't really got a question. I was thinking of a question to ask you, but I'd say just more, see if you remember this. We had the Great Escape, great, but funnily enough, my best memory of Kev at West Brom is Fulham away, 2006. We were 5-0 down, I would say, home and away that season. 5-0 down, and Big Kev scored in the 85th minute, and the away, we went absolutely ballistic in the away end. Like one of those memories, like we'd won the Premier League, never anything else, and then we lost 6-1 in the end. So I just wondered if you remembered it.
Yeah, it was a bad day at the office, that was, I could tell you that much. Definitely a bad day at the office, Ian. Yeah, look, and you know what? Again, when you're in the Premier League and stuff like that, these are the things that can happen. If you're not on your game, when you're down there, when you haven't got the best squad, you have to perform consistently. You got to do the things, defend properly. You got to mark. You got to do all the key things to stay in the games. But when you don't do that, that's what happens. And it was a real bad day at the office here, and I tell you.
With the Great Escape, what changed that season? That was the one thing. What changed that did that spark? Was it a result? I mean, I remember United with a good result. Was it something like that, or was it?
No, I don't know if you remember. We played Crystal Palace midweek, and we drew 2 each. Ernie got both goals, and it was 2 mistakes. We made 2 defensive mistakes, and we finished the game 2 each. And that was really a 6-pointer for us. If we'd have won that game, you'd have fancied us. You said, yeah, we could do it. But that draw just kept us down there. And the next day we went to Florida, went to Orlando. And we were all on the plane. Lads were feeling a little bit down. And Brian Robson and Nigel Pearson came over and they said, look, lads, you can have a couple of beers if you want, you know, just to chill out a bit and stuff like that. So Paul Robinson leant over one of the chairs and he said, Kev, you've got a Black American Express, haven't you? So I said, yeah, I have. So he said, oh, let me see it. He said, I've never seen one before in my life. So I got my Black American Express card out and I said, well, Robbo, you look after it for the trip. I'm going to trust you. And you can imagine, everybody from the seats got up and were like, what's going on? So I told them this is what's going on, and blah 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 blah. So we gets out there, we gets to the hotel, we have a team meeting, and I'm named captain that night, right, in Orlando. So we're there, and everybody could do what they want. That we train and do other bits, but the camaraderie we showed as a team out there. And by the way, I was dreading the bill. Obviously, when I got back, you can imagine. But he didn't hammer it. He said, "Kev, listen, I'll give you the money." But I says, "No, don't worry about it," and it was fine. He respected the card. He treated everybody in the squad. And you know what? We really came together. We had probably we were out there for 6 days. We probably had 5 meetings. Everybody could just say what they needed to say, etc. And for me, that was the turning point. After that, we understood if we win, lose, or draw, put it aside and move on. Because what the team used to do, they used to lug it on their back like luggage. It was too much, absolutely too much. That was the turning point for me.
There you go, Ian. So you just got to send a tweet out to Big Sam and say, take everyone to SeaWorld and we'll be safe.
But you need the Black American Express.
Sam's talked about that. That's the big problem, isn't it? I know you got to move on, but Sam's talked about that, hasn't he? COVID. He's talked about how you can't hug each other around the changing room. It sounds really stupid, but when he said it, I kind of thought, hang on, he's probably right. When you're down there like we are, surely that arm on the shoulder, that bit of a mess around in the training ground that they're probably not allowed to do, it's probably the kind of thing that's going to not help a team like us down there. So,
listen, you might be right, and obviously Big Sam's concerned about COVID, and rightly so. You know, it is one of those things that we seem to be talking about every week. We're going to move on towards Arsenal. Casey, I'm going to come to you. I said this to you the other night. Has Mikel Arteta realised too late that he needed to give some of these youngsters a go? You disagree, and you said you spoke to him, and you kind of said that you felt that it was the right time now, and he believed in these players. He felt it was the right time now.
I think what he actually said, Dan, was when you have talented young players like this, the key is having the right experience around them, not just experience. It's got to be the right experience, because you know what? We've not seen these players step up under previous regimes. We've seen them play, but we haven't seen them at the level like this before. So it makes sense, because when you look at Aubameyang was on the bench against Chelsea. If you follow what everybody else says about he don't pick the youngsters, he could have played Aubameyang that day easily, but he didn't. He picked Martinelli. Smith Rowe started and Saka started. And look what happened. It should be the other way around, whereas the experienced players help the youngsters. But let's be brutally honest. It's the youngsters that are helping the senior players. It's the youngsters that are providing the energy and the quality and making the difference in games, that actually are lifting the Xhakas and El Nenis of this world and Bellerines. And we're starting to see Kieran Tierney turn up to the party now, down that left-hand side, etc. So, look, I just think he's found the right balance for me, Dan, because a lot of the time people are complaining at home that what's up with us, we look lackluster. Now we've got a bit of energy. We look a totally different team when we play. Second half against Brighton didn't know what to do because we were all over them. But as you know, when you're on top, you've got to score. And making that change where Martinelli looked a little bit off it, he puts Lacazette on, and Lacazette comes on and, makes the difference. So I think, listen, Arteta is still learning on the job. We're still not where we want to be or need to be. But I think he has a better idea now of what he wants to do. And obviously he's making moves, and Kolasinac is gone. I think he's going to really make an effort to get some of these players, experienced players who aren't playing, out of the club.
Yeah, and I think we need to. Before I come to Lee, Casey, I just want to ask you a question, because I see Willian, Xhaka, Bellerin, Lacazette playing consistently around sort of September, October, November time, and I wanted to see changes. Are we now going to see Smith Rowe, Saka and Martinelli start consistently, or do we have to be wary because they're young?
Well, let's be honest here, Dan. Without them, who knows where we'd be?
Yeah.
And having asked him the question on Tuesday, I don't think he's got any worries about playing them because, let's be honest, he played them at West Brom. He played them at Brighton.
Yeah.
And I expect them to play. Now Martinelli got taken off. I expect them to play at West Bromwich Albion. I really do. These young kids are making a massive difference. And if they're fit, they play. Now, however you want to play, you play Lacazette. I think Lacazette's better playing with them up front on his own because he's better hold-up man. But whoever you play up top, these three kids have to play because at the moment, they're our best players.
Yeah, it's that simple. It is that simple. They are too good to drop at the moment. And it's worrying when you look at that and you think they should be a kind of solution for us or somebody to bring on to gain some experience. They're our only solution, in my opinion.
They're our saviour.
Our saviour, that's exactly right. Yeah, exactly that right. And Casey, because I know you've got to go in a couple of minutes, I just want to bring this super chat in from Daniel the Blind Gooner. Daniel, thank you so much for your kind donation, mate. Evening, lads. Great stream. Keep up the good work. Please go and follow the Blind Gooner. Please go and subscribe to him on Twitter and on YouTube and listen
I was on with him earlier, so that would be a good one. And we disagreed on a couple of things, I'll tell you. You see it.
Doesn't sound like UKC at all.
You know me. I try and tell my bit straight. If you agree, you agree. And if you don't, we'll have it.
Man, absolutely. And that's why we love you. Mate, I know you've got to shoot off, but Casey, I can't let you go without a prediction score for tomorrow evening. What do you think the score will be, mate?
I think it's going to be 2-0 Arsenal because I just don't see where the goals are going to come from for West Brom.
Okay, thank you very much. Casey, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers. Lee, take care, mate. Dan, thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody. Hey, by the way, and when you finish here, come over to the Ivory Squad. It's going to be interesting over there. See you later.
I'll be plugging that. Don't worry. Cheers, Casey.
See you, mate. Bye.
Take care, mate. Lee Judges, let's come to you, man. I said to Kev a couple of nights ago that I felt like Arteta has now realised, finally, that some of these youngsters deserve a chance and he needs to show me something different. And he is now. But I feel like he should have done it earlier, Lee. I was calling out for this after we got thumped by Villa in November, and it didn't happen. So why has he left it so late to the new year now, do you think, to play these youngsters?
Well, now Kevin's gone, we can say what we like. You know what I mean? Yeah, he should have done it a lot earlier. In his defence, the only thing that I would say is that Martinelli and Smith Rowe were injured coming up for that sort of time. So I think that as soon as they've got themselves fit, he's put them in there. And you can't ask for no more than that. But the thing that I feel that I lost patience with Mikel is that he continued to keep playing the same players that continue to let him down. Now, what he might do and what he might say is that he's waited for these guys to be fit. And then when they're fit, he's chucked them in straight away. And I think that may be the case because certainly since they've come in, the system's changed. They've played with the sort of like three behind the one. Saka has come into a different position, more attack-minded position. He's been different class. Martinelli has shown everybody up on the left-hand side that's played there, including Aubameyang for his work rate and endeavour and everything like that. The only thing that he's lacked at the minute is a goal, but I'm pretty sure that will come. And I also think with the work rate of these three guys and what you've got is somebody like Smith Rowe in a little bit more advanced position. We've now got options. So when you've got the centre forward now, he's got someone a little bit closer to him. He's not isolated. So all of a sudden, Lacazette's looking a little bit better. Aubameyang may be getting a little bit better. And also the midfield players have also then got something to look, when they look up, they've got players in front of them instead of to the side of them. So I think that's the key for Arsenal as well. Listen, and I think that it was a fantastic result against Chelsea, but what they've done was they backed it up with the result against Brighton. Now, that you might turn around and go, oh, well, yeah, that's expected and all that. You know, Brighton, teams have been beating Brighton, but not easily. You know, teams have had to really work against them. You know, I remember Man United, our Man United beat Brighton. I'll never know, but they did. But Arsenal found a way as well, and the youngsters been at the fore of that as well, particularly Saka. And then what I like to see now is obviously like we've got Partey now coming back into the fold. he's trained this week. I do feel that change will come. I think that probably Partey will come in place of El Neni for this game, just giving us a little bit more emphasis going forward. And then all of a sudden, you've got Partey alongside Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and also Saka. We've got a little bit more options, a little bit more firepower. And the fact of the matter is that Mikel Arteta has been saying that he needed. He's always said we needed this creative player. So I think Smith Rowe's done well, but let's face it, Smith Rowe's 20 years of age learning his trade, a bit like our manager, if you want to be brutal about it. But if we had a world-class player in that position, look how much better we'd be, because by bringing in someone like Smith Rowe, who's a rookie, but a very, very good rookie, look at the improvement of the team. So if we'd have pulled in somebody with world-class standings, Arsenal would be in a lot of better position. The one thing that I say about Smith Rowe and the likes of Martinelli and Saka to a certain, not so much Saka, is that they're young, so they can make they can be a little bit inconsistent. And we do, the one thing that Arsenal need now to the end of the season is to be consistent. So why are you going to be relying on these players? I think you're going to have to, because I think that at the end of the day, these guys have proved over these last two games that they've done something over two games that the likes of Willian, Aubameyang, and whoever else you want to put, even Willock, has been disappointing in that role, Dan. If I'll be honest, it's been disappointing in there. Haven't been quite good enough. But all of a sudden now we've got three guys in there. And as Kevin said earlier on, I'd be very, very disappointed if all three of them are not starting on tomorrow. And because of that, and I think that I think that three will have a little bit too much movement for West Brom. And it's great that we're saying that. Where a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I'll be honest, I was dreading this game. I wasn't really looking forward to taking on West Brom. One, because Sam Allardyce. Two, is that they're going to be very, very hard to break down, because one thing you can say about Allardyce is he's going to get them organised. They're going to be hard to break down in their banks of four and whatever. But I feel now we've got a little bit of creativity in our side that can open them up. And we've only got to open them up once or twice to win the game.
Well, I think you're dead right. And I feel like you make a great point in terms of Smith Rowe. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and for me has always been better than Joe Willock. I've never really seen with Joe Willock personally. People think I've been a little bit harsh because he's a youngster, but I just don't get excited when I see him on the pitch. I do with Smith Rowe. I think Martinelli and Saka likewise. The three of them have been an absolute revelation for the last couple of games, and they've been the reason that we've taken the points that we have in the last two games. But Lee, I want to come back to the Man United situation of last year, because they brought in Bruno Fernandes and all of a sudden their midfield looked completely different. So I feel that's what we kind of need to try and find in January. Would you agree?
100%. Look at Man United now. Look where they are, second in the league. No one was tipping them for top four last season. No one. Everybody was not laughing at them, but going, oh, they're not going to make top four. Also, they brought in Fernandes, £50-odd million, and then all of a sudden, bosh, they've gone on and done really well. Now, the one thing that you would turn around and say that stopped Man United doing well was probably Solskjaer himself making some crazy decisions in the semi-final of the FA Cup. They could have gone on and maybe played in the final against us. Who knows? But that was the thing that was holding them back a little bit. But he seems to have got that right this season. He's been a little bit more ruthless with his team selection, as far as it is with Pogba and that. He's gone with the less glamorous players in Fred and McTominay in there, and Bruno just playing in front of them, and it's worked. Now, whether that will take Man United to where they want to go, who knows? But what he's done is he's built foundations. And all of a sudden, Man United are a different prospect to they were this time last season. I think around about this time last year, we was beating them 2-0. And
exactly a year today. Yeah,
a year today. So and then you turning around and saying, well, like Man United, we would look more favourites to get to top four than them. They then signed Fernandes, and things have changed around. Arsenal have got to do this in the summer. In this January transfer window. Don't just turn around and go, oh yeah, we've got Smith Rowe now, because that's not good enough. We need someone in there, and then Smith Rowe backing it up, so we can be a bit more, rest people in between. But and also with Smith Rowe, he's had a couple of injuries. You don't want to keep throwing him to the deep end. But we'll say with him, his work rate was sensational the other night. So, but I do feel that Arsenal need to come in there and buy that. We need to really change our midfield completely. I don't think our midfield is good enough by a long chalk. And that's for the whole of it all there. You know, we've still got the Granit Xhakas in there that was fantastic against Chelsea. But then, you know, you don't know what you're going to get from him week in, week out. Danny Ceballos, for whatever reasons, not the player he was last season. Danny's not, you know, and when he comes on there, you know, he's not looking as good. I don't know why. So realistically, our midfield needs to be, you know, overhauled ASAP.
I think it's great points. We're going to come on to the January transfer window soon. Ian, always good to get an opposition's view. I don't know how much you watch Arsenal, mate. Probably not very often, but I just want to get your opinion on Arteta and Arsenal this season because it has been a strange one for us.
Yeah, so I watch well. I mean, with all the games on now, try and watch all of them because they're spread out quite nicely. So I've seen bits and bobs of you, and like you sort of mentioned, it's not really the best time to be playing, to be honest. So I think when Allardyce came in, this was the game we were all looking at. And even if we were looking at our fixture list, we had a tough 6 games. This was the one that we'd probably be looking at. Oh, we'll fancy you at home. Might be able to do something against you a month ago. But you're right. He's brought those kids in and you suddenly look a team again. You look like you said, you just give them a bit of freedom. They've got a bit of excitement about them. The Brighton game, Willian, yeah, on paper, great player. But there's a reason Chelsea didn't want him anymore. I thought that when you signed him. And Aubameyang, I don't know what's going on this season with him. I don't think it's all him, but I just think you just looked a bit predictable, a bit boring. You've got these players who are all right and they're not good enough. But then you look at these kids and you think, oh no, they'll be a bit unpredictable. They'll run rings around us, and that's what worries me about tomorrow. The season in general, it's one of them, isn't it? So it's an odd league this year. You see you down there and you think people are making jokes about relegation and stuff, and you think, well, that won't happen. And then obviously people say, oh, it could, but it won't. But you do think, is Arteta being given the time because he's who he is, because he's not a foreign manager who's come in from abroad? I know he's foreign, but he's seen as he's played in England. He's been around the club. He's been around England. He came from Pep. He's young. I mean, if you'd appointed another Emery instead of Arteta, that ilk of manager, do you think he'd have been gone by now this season? Maybe.
Great point.
It's a great point. It is a great point because a lot of people have said this about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Frank Lampard and Mikel Arteta because they all played for the clubs. And is there that sentimental factor? Is it the fact that there is, well, it is Arteta, we can't really treat him too badly? I'm not so sure. I've been asking questions about him for weeks. He's now starting to answer some of those questions 3 months on. In my opinion, those solutions should have been made around November when we were losing to stupid teams at home that we just don't expect to be losing to. And I think it's a great point. I think there is the argument of you can't just keep sacking managers. But as far as I'm concerned, you're in a results business. And if results aren't going your way, Bilic has been sacked for less. So I think that when you look at what Arteta is doing at Arsenal at the moment, you just have to look at the table and know that he's not doing a fantastic job. And he might have been able to turn it around the last 2 games, but I'm still asking questions. I'm not getting too carried away. This is going to be a very difficult game tomorrow night. And I think that it's interesting what you say there, Ian, because from a West Brom's point of view there, it's pretty spot on what you've said from what you've watched so far and what Arsenal fans have been saying. We're going to come to your team news before we do ours, Ian. What's your team going to be, do you think, tomorrow night? Have you got any injuries, any worries, any concerns?
I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, against Liverpool, I don't know if you probably did watch it. He had a good result. We basically seemed to be playing a sort of a 4-6 or a 6-4. That's what he was doing. The strikers were wide, and honestly, and we did it the second half against Leeds as damage limitation. We just went to here's a bank of 6, here's a bank of 4. I don't think we can do that. I don't think he started that against Leeds. I don't think we can do that. I think he's got to sort of go for a 4-5-1. We started playing a 5 at the back under Bilic for no reason at the start of this season. I think that was one of the big problems with him. I suddenly thought, hang on, we played 4 at the back all last season in the Championship. Suddenly at the start of this season, we were playing 5, and they don't look like they know how to play it whatsoever. So I think we've got Gibbs is a doubt, I think, and our problem is we haven't. I think our other left back Townsend's still out. So against Leeds, we had Lee Peltier playing. I mean, I don't know if you remember him. He couldn't get in our bench in the Championship last season. I don't know. He's not a Championship player. We're really struggling on that front. We've brought Ivanovic in. Allardyce has dropped him because he looks like he's 6 years past it at Premier League level. So we're really struggling. I think you've got to find a way of getting Pereira back in the team. That's the key to us. You've got to. I know what I've said about flair players, but carrying him. I don't think you can play him and Diangana, but Pereira was banned for 3 games. He was back last game or 2, but he's not played. I think you've got to find a way of fitting him in maybe in a midfield 5 in the middle, but you have to give him freedom. He's not going to track back. You can't put him wide because Martinelli, if he's on the right, he'll have a field day because he won't move, he won't defend. So I think we'll have to go with a bit of a 4-5-1 and see what we can do on the break. I think that's our best bet. But I worry, as Casey said, you guys said, we haven't got goals in us. I don't see how we trouble you. Callum Robinson, nice chap, full of running, not going to score Premier League goals. Carlin Grant, we signed as our big summer signing. I was really against that. I don't think he's great at Championship level. He's had 2 chances in the 2 games we've had at Anfield and City. So I suppose we could have won them, and he's missed both of them. And teams of our level, that's all you get in a game. Every other game, you might get a chance like that, and he's not taking them. So I guess our best bet is to kind of stick solid and try and score against you. But you've already touched on it, haven't you? I mean, the away Allardyce. I mean, look at Pulis. Lee mentioned it. Look at Pulis at Sheffield Wednesday. He's gone after 8 games or something. They're dinosaurs now, aren't they? Pulis was a dinosaur when he was at us. You can't play like Allardyce wants to play. He wants to rough you up. That's how he always beat you guys and beat everyone. He'd rough them up. You can't touch anyone nowadays with VAR. Look at our first game, Allardyce under Villa. Livermore gets sent off for diving into Grealish. Allardyce came out and condemned it afterwards, but behind closed doors, I imagine that's how he told them to play. That's how he wants them to play. He wants to get stuck in, doesn't he? He wants to rough you up. He wants to get into Smith Rowe and leave one on him early doors. And you can't do it because you're probably going to get sent off nowadays if you touch someone. So I think that's our problem, really. I think that's why I've not got a lot of confidence about tomorrow anymore.
Well, that's very pessimistic of you, mate. We're not playing amazingly well, Ian. That's your only confidence going into this. The only positive, we're not playing amazing, all right? We have got 2 very good results, but it wasn't like we battered these teams 6 or 7-0. So don't worry too much. Trust me, this is the Arsenal one, and it's very inconsistent at the moment. Lee, I'm going to ask you, and sorry if this is a bit on the spot, what do you think the team for tomorrow night is going to be the same that was against Brighton, or do we see a couple of changes? I mean, I'm looking at Saka with a knock. I'm looking at Aubameyang and Lacazette potentially both starting instead this time. Does David Luiz or Willian come back in? What's your thoughts, Lee?
Well, I think that listen. I think this is a big game for Arteta as well, because I'll tell you, if we do fail to win this game tomorrow, I think the knives will be out again. I don't think he's on a smooth sailing at the moment. I think one more poor result and it's back to square one. So I think his team selection is going to be key tomorrow. And I've got a feeling that he's going to leave one of Saka or Martinelli out, to compensate, bringing Lacazette back in, because I don't think Lacazette deserved to be left out anyway. 3 goals in his last 3 games. I think, deserves.
Well, apparently he had a bad back, apparently, didn't he? So he was recovering from that. That's what I said anyway. So I don't know how true that is. But.
So is his back all right now then? And if it is, come in. So I think that it will be either Saka or Martinelli left out. One of them will be left out. So Aubameyang go on the left-hand side, and Lacazette up top. I can see it happening now. Personally, would I do it? No, I don't feel that Aubameyang deserves to be in this side at the moment. I really don't. Earn your right to play, not because of what you've done in the past. These guys deserve to be in it. I think that someone just, I think Fergus was saying in the chat there that
Marty hasn't travelled, yeah.
So okay, so that's fair enough. Then you keep the same midfield that's played the last couple of games. I don't think there's any reason to change it, particularly away from home. El Neni does a job. He's not going to shake up any trees, as we now well know. Xhaka as well. So I think I don't really see too much changing. I think the back 3 or back 4 will be the same. I've been very impressed with Mari the last few games. Kept a clean sheet, so it's looked like we can keep another one there. So I just feel that the one change will probably come for Aubameyang and Lacazette both playing in the same team. Now, if that does happen, my God, Aubameyang better deliver. He better deliver, because he's not delivered, and to bring him in and keep him in place of either Saka or Martinelli is a big call for the manager, a big call. But Saka's picked up a couple of knocks in the last few games. And so I think, but don't forget, we've got this game. Then we've got a nice little break there of a week. We don't play our next game till I think it's the Saturday, and it's Saturday night in the FA Cup, and we'll make changes in that. You know, I don't really see like he should be desperate to make changes for the sake of making changes.
I totally agree. And I think that, as Kev said before, we've got to stick with these three. It's working. Keep it going. We don't want to start changing. If you want to change it, like you just said, bring Willian and David Luiz if you really have to, and Pepe's back into the things when we got Newcastle the following week in the FA Cup, and then change it round then. That's my honest opinion. We're going to do some predictions before we talk about transfer news. Ian, let's start with you. What do you think the score is going to be tomorrow night, mate?
I've not been too optimistic, have I? I really should be. I mean, I'm gonna to be honest, I think 3-0 Arsenal.
Wow. Okay, 3-0 to the Arsenal. Lee Judges, what do you reckon, mate?
I'm not going to go as far as that. I think like maybe 1-0, 2-0 again. Same. I see the game being very similar to the Brighton game. If I'll be honest, I see it very, very similar. But I think Arsenal, I think will hopefully start a little bit better than they did against Brighton. And I think that you know, whatever you want to say about, you know, when a team loses 5-0 home to Leeds, as good as Leeds are and whatever, that will be on their minds. I think that they'll be a little bit cautious, West Brom. So take that bit of cautiousness and use it as our advantage. So I think 2-0, like, you know. So I see Russ is being very positive. He's gone for a 1-1 draw. Russ is being
positive. Russ very positive. Positive. It's normally 3-0 lost or 2-0 lost, isn't it? So 1-1, I'll take that.
Very positive.
What do I think the score is going to be? Okay, I am going to agree with Lee Judges, and the reason I'm going to agree with Lee Judges is half agree with Lee Judges. I think it's going to be exactly the same as the Brighton game. I think we're going to find it very, very hard. I think it's going to be a tight game, and I think we're going to win 1-0. I do feel like West Brom have got a chance against us, because I believe any team has got a chance against Arsenal just because of how inconsistent we are. But if Arteta sticks with this team, I think we'll get across the line, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 to the Arsenal. I think if Allardyce would have been in a bit longer, if it was after January and he would have got a big lump of a striker and a big centre-half in, like I think he will, then I would be more worried about this game, because we all know that he wants a Kevin Nolan and Andy Carroll to lump it up to. We all know that he wants a centre-half that's going to be real nasty, or a holding midfielder that's going to be a Gattuso and just not leave your ankles. So I don't think he's had the chance to have that with West Brom yet. So I think we'll just be okay and just escape this one. I'm going to go for a 1-0. Before we come to Arsenal's transfer news, Ian, have you linked with anybody, or is there anybody that you think you may be looking at after what I've just said about what Allardyce does look like he likes?
That's exactly what we need. But I haven't heard anything, but I've been scratching my head since he came in, thinking, who's out there like that anymore? I don't know who's out there we could get. I've been trying to think, but I think a big problem with it is, I mean, if anyone, he must have had a chat. They must have told him they'll let him bring someone in, but we're not going to spend big. I mean, we don't spend big ever. Even when we stayed in the league for eight years, we don't spend big. And in the summer, to be fair, we say they didn't back Bilic, but for us, they did. They gave him 18 million for Grant, which I know nowadays is nothing, but they gave him 15 million, 18 million for Dean Garner. They paid 8 million for Pereira. They brought Ivanovic in. I would hate to think what wages he's on, probably our highest player. So they gave him more money. So there's no money in there for a striker. They're not paying 18 million for Grant and then paying 25 million for another striker. It's going to be that clever loan, isn't it? It's going to be that clever free that he finds, or that, and it's going to be someone old, and it's going to be someone nasty and horrible. And that's what we need. We need that. But I think we need to offload. It's our big problem. We're talking about you guys getting rid of your Klasinics and your players like that at the moment, just to get them off the books. We've got players that we tried to get rid of in the summer who stayed for whatever reason. Charlie Austin, again, I'd hate to think what money Charlie Austin is on at the club, not playing football, probably not going to play. That Grzycki we brought in, past it, old, he's on big money. We need to get rid of a few of them, and maybe that'll free up a bit in the wage bill for Big Sam. But I don't know if you guys can think of anyone, but I've really been scratching my head who's even out there we could bring in. We need a home midfield.
I think there was a little rumour about Andy Carroll, weren't there? Like, you know, so he sort of like worked under Sam before, like, you know, so maybe somebody of that ilk, you know.
It's a bit interesting, isn't it? But it's sadly, which is probably what we need, isn't it? I mean,
listen, I've never people knock Andy Carroll. You know, he's an handful. You know what I mean? I don't think he's quite the player that he was, but He's certainly like someone that can come in there if you're going to play that sort of way. It'd be ideal, you know, for a team like West Brom that, you know, like that are looking to, you know, get points, any sort of points, you know what I mean? And you know, like someone like Charlie Austin, he's was that sort of player a couple of years ago, wasn't he? But he sort of lost it a little bit, and he like, you know, and he's not the player that he was. I think injuries have took his toll on him. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. But I think like a couple of solid pros that are going to be needed. You know, you look back at West Brom back in 2005. They made a couple of very, very astute signings in that January, which made them survive. You know what I mean? Kevin being one of them. But they made a couple of astute signings. And you know, if anybody that can do that, then definitely Sam is the one that can find those sort of players.
What about? Well, here's one for you. I don't know how much money you have got in terms of wages. Diego Costa is a free transfer, mate. He's a nasty centre forward.
I think he's going to be going up the road to our rivals, Wolves, isn't he?
He's Wolves, isn't he? Yeah, they're talking about Wolves.
He's Spanish Portuguese. He's probably got the same agent as all their players. I think he's well on the way there. Personally, I'd love him. He's exactly what we need. If you could pick someone, that's who we want. Obviously, it's not happening. We're more in the Andy Carroll market. I do agree with Lee. You can keep Andy Carroll fit. That's the problem nowadays, isn't it? He doesn't seem to play football. But we need a holding midfielder too. We need a bit of, Lee said, a bit of experience. Just someone in the dressing room. We've got young lads in the team. We've got Sawyers in midfield who probably scored own goal of the century in the Leeds game.
It was, wasn't it?
Somebody needs to lift their heads up. We've got our best player this season by a million miles has been the lad from Chelsea, Gallagher.
Very good player.
Really good.
You need another one of them. You need an experienced head in there, and we need to find another loan from someone like, well, it used to be you guys. Nowadays, not so much really, I guess, because you're playing your kids. You said they're your saviours, but we need a Chelsea kid. We need someone to come from United or something just to give you that spark and a bit of experience alongside them.
I think another one that came in 2005, if I remember rightly, along with Kevin, like they signed Kieran Richardson, like from Man United, up and coming. So
that was a good sign. Very good signing that was. What about Jack Wilshere? Jack Wilshere, Ian, he's on a free transfer.
Whoever did before Lee, I think someone said Xhaka. We're not taking him off you. Don't worry about that. Wilshere was talked about, wasn't he? I remember him when he left West Ham, didn't he? He just left. He's on a free, isn't he? I mean, you'd think he'd be talking about players like that. The money might be an issue with him. He'd be on big bucks, wouldn't he? I don't know whether we'd have that in the budget for him. But again, if you get him fit, but when was the last time he played more than 3 games in a row?
I'll be a little bit anxious about that. Like, you know, I don't think Jack's the sort of player you need neither, really. I think that, you know, you need reliability in there. Someone's going to play 10, 15 games for you. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. Unfortunately, such a shame.
Russ is back to his positiveness there, Lee. Jack are not good enough for West Brom. That's the state of us.
There you go.
He's got a great point. He has got a great point. I do like Russ. Lee, last few minutes talk about Arsenal. We have been linked with Isco. We've been linked with Ericsson. We have been linked with Buendia from Norwich. We've been linked with Sabitzer from Leipzig, Hossam Aouar again, and Bissouma from Brighton. So how are we going to fit all them into our team then, Lee?
We're certainly not going to, don't expect no big signings in January. Nothing's going to happen. I think like maybe a Lisco or a loan to, those sort of players coming in. But I do think that we need to bring in one or two of that sort of player just to get us, like the creative side of our game going again. But I then expect us to be going big in January. And I think that if you go all summer trying to sign a while and then you don't go back in for him again the next season, then something's wrong with the way that the club's set. So I do feel that they'll go for him back, but he's not going to come this time of the season now. We had the opportunity and we didn't take it. He's not going to come now when they're second in the league. It's just financially not going to be that thing there. The guy from Norwich, maybe we could get him and maybe loan out somebody to compensate that. Could happen. But Norwich again, are they going to want to be selling their players when they're right up there in the chance of getting promotion back? So that's going to be a difficult one. People say, they're going to be able to get these players. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as what people think. But we're going to have to make some sort of shakes. We're going to have to make some moves, and I think that maybe like one or two will come up. Like I think that Arsenal will surprise us come this January, and I hope that it's January the 10th, not January the 30th.
Well, this is the big thing, isn't it? Last summer, it was Thomas Partey in the last minute of the season. We don't want that again. Let's just start. We've started to be linked with players now. I think Buendia is a great shout from Norwich. I actually quite like him. 24 years old, Argentinian, can play right midfield or attacking midfield. Really creative. I think he's created more chances above everybody in England, apart from Kevin De Bruyne. So that's not a bad person to be behind, is it? So I think Buendia would be a good shout. I like Bissouma from Brighton. I think he'd be just what we need to slot next to Thomas Partey, but if that's to happen, I think it will probably be in the summer. Likewise, Lamptey at Brighton. If we are going to get rid of Bellerin in the summer to Barcelona, I think Lamptey would be a fantastic replacement. I'm a big fan of him. I'm obviously a huge fan of Houssam Aouar because I believed that he was going to come in the summer. If we don't go back in for him, I think it would be foolish because I do believe Lyon would actually sell him in the summer because they do need money. I'm not sure about the has-beens. I'm not so sure I'm excited about Isco. I'm not so sure I'm excited about Christian Eriksen. Those two, for me, are players that are out of form and players that can't get into Real Madrid or Inter Milan. So I don't really want players like that. I'd rather have players that are on form. And if Buendia is on form playing for Norwich, I don't really care. If he's on form, I'll take him. Isco, for me, can't get a game. Eriksen can't get a game. I'm a huge fan of what I've heard about of Sabitzer from Leipzig, but I don't know much about seeing him play. But I hear he's decent. So we're being linked with the right sort of players and right positions, Lee. Another person in the chat that a lot of people are talking about is Julian Brandt from Dortmund. Again, not somebody I know a lot about. Lee Judges, do you know much about this kid?
No, only what people have been saying and everything like that. But listen, anybody like that's going to improve our team. That's how I look at it now. We need to improve that midfield. We need to get in some different type midfield players, and I think that we need to totally reconstruct our midfield. Now we ain't going to do that all in January, but we need to look at the creativity side over the next week or next few weeks, and then at long term look to change it completely. So it'd be very interesting. But as I say, if you're going to start going to get all these players and that, then you're sort of like shutting the door on the award deal. I say it again and I say it again, you're trying to sign him all through the summer. Why would you block that door? Why would you put the bolt on it? So go back there, see if you can get him first, and if you can't, then look at something short term, and then look at the long term with him as well.
A lot of people in the chat saying Houssam Aouar is overrated. He's another French player coming from the French league. There's been plenty of French players that have come from that league over the years that have lit up the Premier League. So I'm not taking that. I think Houssam Aouar has got a lot of potential. A lot of people saying they're worried about his attitude and that he could be another Guendouzi or somebody like that. For me, I think that if he's playing like he did the time that I saw him against Man City in the Champions League where he ripped them apart, I'd be more than happy to have him. And I think he's got a hell of a potential. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Ian, thank you so much, man, for coming on. I much appreciate you coming on. It's always quite difficult coming on other opposition's fans' podcast, but I hope you've enjoyed it, mate.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks very much, guys. Yeah, I don't do this thing that often. We're a bit busy with work and stuff, and it's been really enjoyable. Yeah, it's good to a bit negative, sorry, but I mean, if you're in opposition, then it's probably nice for you guys and your fans to hear someone being even more negative than you lot probably are at the moment. So,
well, listen, it's been a very negative season for us, and it's only just starting to pick up the last couple of games in terms of results. So, mate, do not worry about that. And listen, I wish you all the luck for the rest of the season. I've got nothing against West Brom, like my mate Lee Judges. So we'll see what happens.
Say that Saturday night when we beat you 1-0.
There we go, mate. There we go.
Yeah.
You don't want that. I tell you that. You do not want that. But thank you, Ian. Absolute top man. Lee Judges, thank you very much, mate.
No problems at all. I enjoyed that. That was good.
It was a good rant, a good debate, and some good therapy in the new year of 2021. Thank you to everyone in the chat. If you haven't done so already, please like this video. There's over 350 of you watching live at one stage, so please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't. Tell your friends. We are Arsenal fans that just try and talk as real as we can about the club that we love. Same Old Arsenal will be back on Monday evenings at 7 o'clock please come and watch us. You have myself, Lee, Craig, Harry, Mark, and hopefully Graham will be back at some point in the new year. So until then, up the Arsenal, and we will see you next time.